My name is Ellen McNally. I'm MDeverywhere Sales and Marketing Project Manager. And for those of you who may not be familiar with MDeveryware, we are a revenue cycle management company. We offer ICD-10 ready revenue cycle cloud-based applications combined with best practice medical billing services that are proven to improve the claims process, decrease denials, and increase collections for our clients. When you add in our user-friendly 2014 certified EHR, along with our NCQA certified CVO and credentialing services, MDeveryware is the single source solution provider for all of your revenue cycle and enrollment needs. I do want to thank you all for joining us today for our webinar that asks the question, how healthy is your practice? And our presenter, Rich Flaherty, is MDeverywhere's VP of Sales. And with over 27 years of sales and marketing experience, the last 10 years in the healthcare industry, Rich has worked with hospitals and physician practices, helping them to understand their revenue cycle process, introducing technology and services that can truly enhance performance and results. He was also a director of operations for a large DME practice, so all of that experience means he knows what works and what doesn't when it comes to the solutions, the technology, and the services needed to run a financially healthy practice. And he's going to share that information and his knowledge with you today. So before I do turn it over to Rich, I'd like to just cover a couple of housekeeping points. We are recording the webinar, and the recording and a PDF download will be shared with all the registrants after the webinar, usually within about 24 hours. Attendees will be muted during the presentation, but we expect you may have some questions. So feel free to type them into that questions chat window on the bottom of your control panel as you think of them. We will follow up with them after the webinar. We're also going to be running a couple of polls during the presentation today, and we encourage you to participate in these polls. We will share the results as we conduct them, so the more audience that participates, the better it gives us on our data collection. And that's it on the housekeeping side. So Rich, I'm going to pass the mic over to you to give us the presentation on how healthy is your practice.
Thanks, Ellen, and welcome again, as Ellen said, to everyone who is out there listening in and watching on the screen. And yes, we're going to have a really fantastic presentation today, really delving down into, again, the topic of how healthy is your practice to hopefully give you some food for thought, some ideas and things you can look at your own practice. So as we look at this, everybody's familiar with this phrase, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. We've all heard the expression. Most of us believe in the message, and typically what that means it's maintaining a healthy lifestyle by eating right and exercising often, and hopefully we'll live a healthier life, live longer, and honestly not have to go to the doctor as much. But what about doctors? Now, when we talk about the doctors, how healthy are the doctors themselves? And more importantly, how healthy are their practices? And that's the key message here, is how healthy are the doctor practices that are out there. So as we talk about how healthy the doctor practices are, of course what we're talking about is the health in terms of the practice. And a healthy practice means a thriving business. And however, most practices today are barely getting by financially, unfortunately, due to the declining reimbursements from government and private payers, increased operating expenses associated with new mandates such as meaningful use and ICD-10. Many practices are seeing their profitability drop, and sometimes for the physicians, obviously their own salary or their own income coming from their own practice. So collecting every dollar is key, and every last dollar is key to keeping the practice healthy, and is critical to the financial future and success of the practice. So before we go into the rest of the presentation, I thought we'd take watch a quick little short video.
Oh no, another denied claim. Between patients with an eligible insurance and code errors, I'm getting too many denials. Not to mention all these insurance underpayments. And my patient AR is through the roof. No one is trying to collect this outstanding money. I just don't know what to do.
So I assume some of you are sitting out there going, boy, that sounds familiar. And if it does, don't worry, you're not alone. That's a very typical thing we see with practices that we hear from physicians. So what are we talking about here? We're really talking about, again, money left on the table, trying to collect every dollar possible that's out there, and really, as we like to say at MDeverywhere, getting the doctor paid accurately and correctly for everything that the physician does. And what we see with, from MGMA, and you've probably seen a lot of the studies out there, MGMA says that typically practices leave somewhere around 15%, but it's up to potentially as high as 30% of potential revenue on the table every year due to inefficient billing practices. And that's a lot of money. Even at 15%, it's a lot of money for a practice to leave on the table. And that 30% today, or 15%, can be the difference between staying open and staying independent, and not having to be bought by a hospital in the area and being able to keep your practice independent. So it's key, definitely key, that we try to make sure we're collecting everything possible. So let's take a look at the agenda real quick for the rest of the presentation. In today's webinar, as I said, we're going to assess how healthy your practice is. And we're going to start by sharing with you some real-life assessments of practices like yours and help you identify the signs of an unhealthy practice, and then offer some recommendations on improving the performance. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started.
Rich, we're going to do our first poll here.
I'm sorry, you're correct, Alan. Thank you for reminding me. We're going to do our first poll here.
Okay, thank you. All right, and everyone should be seeing that coming up on their screen right now. And this is really just an initial question to get an idea of what we've got going on with our audience. We want to know, when was your last formal practice assessment? When was the last time you really dug deep, looked at the reports, took an assessment, and reviewed the analysis on your practice? All right, was it within the last 12 months? Was it within the last 1 to 3 years? 3 years or more? Maybe you've never had one, but maybe you're thinking about it or planning on one. Never did one, but you're interested in possibly an assessment by MDeverywhere. All right, we'll give it another 4 or 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1 for everyone to get their votes in. And we're going to close the vote and share our results. Rich, it looks like we have 36% who have done an assessment within the last 12 months, 32% within 1 to 3 years, 19% 3+, and 13% have never done it, and that's with 75% of our audience voting.
Okay, great. Well, that's a decent percentage of people participating. We appreciate it. As Ellen said at the beginning, the more votes we can get, the more valuable the data is we can see. And obviously, as we can see here, over half of you that did participate, about 68% of you, almost 3/4, have done one in the last 3 years, which is fantastic. And that's obviously it's great to see organizations making sure that they're keeping up on their practice health. The key thing, though, with this is this is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time shot where you do it and you don't do it again. It needs to be a constant monitoring, and we'll continue. We'll talk a little bit more of that as we go forward. So again, let's jump back in, and we're going to jump to the first real-world example for us. And in these real-world examples, what we covered when we did these assessments is we really covered the main metrics that you guys should be looking at, which is accounts receivable analysis, the days of revenue outstanding, the charges and payments analysis that we'll look at, collection rates and adjusted collection rate analysis, and then finally the charge posting and the billing lag. So the timing it's taking you guys to get these practices to get the bills out the door. So let's look at the first one. This is a very simple example, single doc office, general medicine, based in Ohio. So I think it's probably a good indication for most of the folks out there as far as the smaller practices. And what you'll see here on the first slide is this is the insurance accounts receivable. And as you can see, this particular practice has a significant back-end issue with regards to their insurance accounts receivable. 79% of their accounts receivable on the insurance side are sitting out there at the 90-day and higher category, than in 90 days plus category. While the benchmark for MGMA that they push out is really 12 to 14% is where a practice should be. So as we talked to this practice, this was obviously a big focus of the actual assessment itself. But even beyond that, the 66% that's sitting out there at 180 days indicated there was something amiss with their claim submission, denial management process. They obviously have a significant issue on the back end. And the key, I think, as we look at something like this, the key recommendation, is really looking at that denial management strategy and having a robust system to not only try to identify the denials in a timely basis on the front end and hopefully eliminate them, but have a fast process on being able to get resolution of those denials on the back end. And really proactively cleaning those claims, trying to do the best we can on the front end to make the claims as clean as possible before they go out the door. Let's go on to the next slide. What this one shows is actually the insurance accounts receivable based into the different payer categories. So you can see here, the primary contributor to that 90-plus day AR is the commercial payers, where 68% of the 90-plus day AR is sitting in the commercial payers. So very strong indication here, obviously, where they need to focus. But the other one that jumps out, the other two that jump out in this list here, is Medicaid and Medicare. Especially the Medicaid numbers, because as most of you know, if you work with Medicaid, unfortunately you don't get paid a lot by Medicaid, but what you do get paid, you typically get paid pretty quickly. So typically when we do these assessments, we see the Medicaid number is much smaller, as is the Medicare number in general. So there's also some, even though it's not as big a numbers down there as far as the makeup of the 90 plus, there's issues there that this practice needed to take a look at to try to figure out why their Medicaid and their Medicare numbers were that high. And again, it just continues to push that focused denial management strategy and identifying, the reasons for these delays, and really, the reasons for the shifts by insurance payers. Because sometimes a lot of times when we see these 90-plus day AR situations, it's because something's changed on the payer and the practice hasn't reacted to it. Hasn't got either didn't see it or especially if it tends to happen at my DME, we get a change, say with Tennessee Medicaid, where we would affect a significant amount of our claims, and we were submitting that type of claim over very quickly over a period of time, and all of a sudden we're way out of whack on our AR because that one particular claim type was affected by a change on the payer side. So again, in addition to the denial management strategy of trying to be able to get these fixed quickly and track them in the beginning, it's also watching the trends and watching your payers' trends to make sure that you're proactively or catching any changes that occur in a timely manner. Let's go to the next slide, and this is now jumping into the patient accounts receivable. And as you can see here, in this particular practice, the patient account receivable side is unfortunately not in any better shape. So they have 94% of their patient AR that's sitting out in that 90-day plus category, and 87% of that is sitting out in that 180-day category. Now, as you look at this, the key thing that jumps out to our folks when they see a chart like this is this is probably the high deductible world, where we're getting more and more patients who have high deductible plans. And so, therefore, the patient balances that are the patient responsibility is continuing to grow. And I know all of you are out there shaking your head saying, yes, it's something we're dealing with on a daily basis as more and more companies shift their plans in this direction. And hence, there's a lot more a lot larger patient balances on the back end that people have to deal with. So what are the strategies and the recommendations here? Well, obviously, one key thing, and I bring this up mainly because this was part of the issue with this practice, is getting your statements out timely, making sure that you're pushing your statements to your patients on a timely basis, which this group was struggling with regards to their internal processes. It's also establishing an effective front-end collection process. So obviously, we're talking about these high deductible plans, making sure that you have a real strong eligibility solution and process on the front end of your flow, so that way going into an appointment with the patient what their total deductible is for the year and where they are sitting year to date on that deductible, such that if all of a sudden you can see that that they haven't yet out of their deductible and they have a high deductible plan like a $500 or $1,000 deductible plan, maybe having an effective process on the front end to maybe collect part of that deductible balance ahead of time will limit the amount of billing of AR that's on the back end for that patient. In addition to working with your patient to maybe have them give payment information to you and sign a form that would give you authorization after the fact to bill up to a certain level of dollar figure of the rest of that deductible automatically, so you're not having to worry about sending sending a statement out and trying to collect a large balance. So another, potentially real good recommendation there. Really setting up, having a strong back-end process for just making payments. When the patient does get that statement, giving them a way to make sure that they can, one, easily make a payment to you. And easily doesn't mean writing a check and putting it into an envelope and getting a stamp and sending it back in the mail to you. That's a hard process. The easy process would be giving a portal online where they can make payments either with credit cards or checks, which is key. You don't want to limit it just to a credit card because a lot of people can't put a $500 bill on their credit card. So you want to make sure they have the flexibility of both ways. And then the other side of it is that system, that automation system also goes back to the practice to say giving them a way to set up a payment plan that's not arduous for the practice. It's not something where folks inside the practice have to remember to run the payments or remember to send statements out that the payments are due or count on the patient to remember that they have to make their payments. It's an automated process where it automatically pulls from their checking account or their credit card on a certain date and helps pay that balance down on an ongoing basis. So again, that back-end process of having that flexibility both for the patient and yourself is key. Keeping regular balance reminder calls out to your patients. That's another big way of reminding them that hey, that statement you got on the first of the month, you've got the 15th of the month. Check with them a reminder that they have that balance, and then again being able to offer some sort of payment plan process to them if they can't pay. And then last one is actively working your patient balances. A lot of practices fall in the mode of, because there's everyone's strapped for time, everyone's living on unlimited resources, of sending that statement out and hoping that that patient then responds back with that statement, but there's no proactive work with that particular patient to get them to pay down. So the key thing is don't wait for that payment to come in the mail. Proactively work with your patients to make sure that we can get those patient balances paid. And then going on to the next slide, this is now looking at the big picture, taking into consideration both pieces, the patient side and the insurance side. And as you can see here, this poor practice really needed help. They and they knew it coming into they were aware of it coming into to seeing the results. But they have a significant issue with regards to their total revenue outstanding. Benchmark for MGMA is 35 to 40 days. They're at 303 days. So obviously this particular piece of the puzzle is key for a practice. Hopefully you're not in the scenario of being 8 to 9 times that benchmark. But even if you're at double the time, double the amount, even if you're triple the amount, that's still a significant delay in revenue. And every time there's a delay in revenue, certainly that means there's a potential delay, or potential chance that that may not get collected, especially on the insurance side. So let's talk a little bit about the charges and payments. And this is again where we'll look at the trending more than anything with regards to what we see over time periods. So what you'll see here is you can see in June and July, the blue bar is the charges, the lighter kind of light blue bar is the payments, and then you can see the yield amount coming across the adjusted collection ratio. Well, obviously the first thing that jumps out at you is the downward trend. So obviously this practice had some major changes that occurred after June of last year to December of last year, where their charges dropped significantly, and also, as you can see, their payments dropped significantly. But the concern there is how quickly the payments are tailing off towards the end. And again, as we look at a slide like this, again, it's very much of a trending thing, but this is an important slide for you guys to track, because you want and track over even farther than a 6-month period, because you really want to make sure that you're watching your trends, and not only watching the fact that charges are going down and collections are going down, but trying to make sure that the collections aren't going down less, or payments aren't going down less than the charges are, or quicker than the charges are, and really track for you what's happening in your practice. So in this case, obviously, as we talked to the practice, we discussed what caused all these changes, what caused the decrease in the charges, and how did they react, and obviously what happened with this particular practice, unfortunately, is as charges went down and as payments went down, the staffing level had to be cut back, which is what caused a lot of their delays in payment statements, et cetera, going out to their patients. So let's now jump over to denial analysis. And what you'll see here on this chart is it gives you a good look at kind of the buckets where on the denial codes where these denials fell into. And as you can see, it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. The big piece. And keep in mind, these aren't necessarily payer denials. This is looking at anything that we're not getting paid for different reasons. And what you can see there on the top part is the patient responsibility was a big chunk. This was a big area where, again, with the high deductible plans, a big area where that this particular practice was running into. And you can see in the bottom right chart that kind of goes along with the coinsurance amount being almost half of their analysis by the count on the claim counts. It's not as much on the dollars, but certainly on the claim counts, and you can definitely see the flow of both of those. And in addition to they have a significant, decent amount in the billing related side. So this is again and coding related. This is where we're in the upfront process of getting claims ready to go and delays in processing to get claims out the door. And so they in addition to having the issue with these high deductible plans, they did have even some issues with regards to their process on the front end. And then the last part is the follow-up. They have there was a significant amount of claims out there that just were not getting followed up when they got denied. So this practice had a blend across all, obviously being hit very hard by the high deductible plans, but there was typically what we'll see with practices is some of the other ones are very small, like the provider related one on the far right. You get a lot of them where there's a lot, they're much smaller, and you can really identify some key ones. In this case, they had a lot of key ones for this particular practice. So going to the next slide, this is the billing submissions, and as we look at this, again, what we're moving this slide. There we go. Obviously, the big red number on the right-hand side is jumps out at you, obviously because it's red, but also because of the size of it. Obviously, I think you'd expect that this is that you would see this given everything else we've talked about with this practice. They had a significant issue. As you can see, their charge posting was fast. They're using EMR. They get the charges down into the system very fast, within 3 hours. But it takes them 1,030 hours on average to get the claims out the door. Again, what's the reason here? What's happening here? What's causing this? And this is a very unfortunately typical situation for most practices. It's people. For them, they just didn't have the people there to do the work. And I like to talk, when I talk to prospects and companies, I like to talk about the fact that in general, when you look at practices, and I'll hopefully some of you will laugh when I say this, most people in a practice are doing 1.5 jobs. They're not doing a single job. They're doing 1.5 to 1 3/4 jobs. And again, there's only so much time in your day, and even in the evening, to be able to get everything done. And unfortunately, things fall off the plate. And as I mentioned earlier, the fell off the plate here was statements in one area, one particular area for this practice. But as you look at it, it's an issue that we all have to deal with. And again, you have a couple of choices. What can you do? What can happen to be able to allow you to improve these processes? And obviously, one in particular is trying to get help. Trying to find organizations that can help you either in a couple of different ways. One is, an organization to maybe help on the back end, to actually take over some of the heavy lifting on the back end. Another way is to have an application that actually makes the front end process move more quickly. So you don't have as many. You can get through the process of getting the claim and the encounter ready to go and getting that claim out the door. Another way is having that robust eligibility solution, available, such that you can and also a nice claim cleansing system, an audit engine to check the claims before they go, so you eliminate a lot of the back end problems that your practice may have of having a significant amount of denials that you have to follow up on that pulls you away from getting claims out the door. And it's a balance. You got to do both. And again, if you're limited on resources, there are definitely organizations and folks out there that can help you with this and can help you manage one side or the other or both sides and make everything work much better. Okay, so let's jump in now. We're going to go to example 2. Now what this one is this is obviously, it gives you, for those of you who are a little bit larger practices, this will give you a good feel. It's an 18-doc practice, OBGYN, down in Texas. So it's a much larger example, and we're going to see some similarities and some differences. So as we look at the insurance accounts receivable, you're seeing a much different picture. Actually, it looks like we flipped the chart around. So this practice is doing much better. Obviously, they have a 66% 0 to 30-day insurance receivable, which is fantastic. And you think, boy, they look pretty good. But the reality is, if you look on the back end, they're still sitting out there at 25%. That's beyond 90 days. and that's compared again to the benchmark of 12 to 14. So even at double the amount to where they're sitting, it's still an issue. It's still something that that there's some issues there that they need to take a look at, and try to uncover what's causing this delay in the insurance side. And again, it goes back into that denial management strategy and coming up with a plan to be able to get the claims clean and get them out the door, and then follow up on those denials when they do occur. Going to the next slide, again, we talk about where's the insurance side of it. And what you'll see here is you'll see on the right-hand side, they don't have a whole lot of Medicare, so it's a small amount. Medicaid, as we talked about before, it's still at 6%. That's still pretty high given the volume of the Medicaid that's there. So again, there still is an issue with this practice there. And as you go into the commercials and Blue Cross Blue Shield, 10 and 11%, that's still getting up pretty high. That's still a pretty high percentage for them. So it gives this particular analysis is nice because it really gives you an idea of where to focus in on and where are the issues, where can we where do we have to attack first and take a look at the payers first. Going to the patient side, now this one, unfortunately, the chart looks like the other chart, with the small practice, which, again, I think, unfortunately, for many practices, this is kind of how the chart looks, again, with the high deductible plans. Again, 90% that are sitting out there in 90 plus, and 78% of those are sitting out there in 180-day plus. So, again, we've talked about it, all the different recommendations. We gave the same recommendations to this group of what they should look for. They just need to really, make it as easy as possible to have the patients make payments and do an effective job on the front end of avoiding those big balances by utilizing a strong eligibility solution on the front end and leveraging the knowledge of the data that you can get from there and collecting those balances on the front end. Their days outstanding are much better, certainly much better than the last one, 57 3/4. But still, even that, you look at that, at the numbers of the benchmark, we're still at about 50% too high. So we're still above. And I will tell you, I don't want everybody walking away thinking, boy, every practice we've done these for are always above that 35 to 40. There's a lot of practices who do a fantastic job, and they are down below that 35 to 40. But anytime, that's a benchmark. That's a kind of the minimum goal of where we want to achieve. So anytime, even we're only 15, 17% higher, or certain days higher, it still means a lot to the cash flow of the practice. So better than what we saw before, but still an area where, again, we need to make sure we do some diligence on trying to bring down both the insurance and the patient side. And you can see the insurance in their case is probably the bigger hurdle here, since it's by itself is above the benchmark overall. Charges and payments. So as we look at this one, you can see it was an interesting process. But the thing that jumped out at us with this is you can see their charges increased significantly up to October, still stayed pretty high in November and December. But what you don't see there, and what we would have expected to see, is a kick up in the payments, especially in October, November, and December, because again, September was a big a decent jump from August. October jumped again. November kind of came back down to September's numbers, and then went back in December. And if there's looking at their collection time of an average of 41 days from the previous slide, they're going to get some of those are going to be collected in the same month, but you should start to see those payments coming in the next month in the 2-month period. And again, in this case, they didn't see that kick up in the actual payments themselves. So as we look, when we did some analysis with them, we really focused in on that back end to try to figure out why are they not seeing an increase in their yield and seeing an increase in their not their yield in their payments, and then why did the yield dip a little bit? Obviously, it dipped a little bit because of the high volumes, but it started to go back up, which is expected, but then it dropped back down significantly, even to the lowest amount. So what's causing that change on that side? So again, you definitely this flow and this tracking and for practices is key, so you can see kind of prepare for the future as to what's coming, and then when the future comes, what happened? Why didn't we see what we expected to see afterwards? Okay, so as we look at their denial analysis chart, again, what we're seeing here is we're seeing again the same issue, patient responsibility on the left. But you'll notice here, coding related down. So they actually have, with this practice, they do a great job at making sure that their coding's correct. But they still have front end issues and billing related issues. There's still significant denials that are again, the high deductible plans hitting the patient responsibility. You'll notice in the bottom charts, obviously the co-insurance is a big piece for them, both in the denial by amount and denial by count. Both of those are significantly high, big percentage, and one that we wouldn't expect to be as high as it is. So again, very similar recommendations we made on the other side with regards to the payment responsibilities, but they need to do some diligence there in that billing related area to truly understand, the front end related area to truly understand what's happening, where's the problems, how come the eligibility process that we have isn't working, et cetera. And then as we look at their billing and submission, obviously, the red numbers are still red, but they're not, that 4-digit red, which is on the billing lag, which is good. But as you look at it, so they're obviously, this group has a significant amount of time even on the posting lag. So they weren't using an EMR, which would make sense for that timing. But their claims filing is double what it typically should be. The benchmark is done over the benchmark. So they are really in a mode where, if you can see the chart, 47% are getting out in 1 to 3 days, but they have ones that sit out there for 7 to 10 days. Almost 30% of them are sitting out there in 7 to 10 days. That's a lot of claim dollars sitting out there waiting to be processed. And again, you're drilling in to say what's happening with those. Why are we not able to get that through? Or we're not getting the information on the front end that we need to effectively be able to get the claims out the door. So as you look at that, this is probably a little more typical of most practices as far as the flow. But again, even if you take that, in our world, 1 to 3 days is the limit. So when you go out to 4 to 10 days, and in their case, they have 44% of that sitting out there in that area. It's 43%. It's definitely a large percentage and something that needs to be addressed. So again, we've given you a lot of data. Hopefully you walked away that these practices are not alone, and hopefully if you're looking at this going, that sounds like me, you should walk away saying I'm not alone. Really, as we've done these analysis, and we've done a significant amount of these over the years, 80% of the practices that we've looked at exceed the recommended 12 to 14% benchmark for insurance AR. Not surprising. And again, there is, I guess, 20% of them that hit that or less. But in that 80%, that means a significant amount of folks are in the category of these type of practices where their numbers are double, triple, quadruple, in some cases even more higher than that. 75% of the practices had a 50% or more of their patient AR in 90 plus. And I think that's, I think if we'd done this a few years ago, that number would be significantly less. But because of the high deductible plans, we're seeing that across the board, and it's something where every practice has to come up with a strategy of how do you deal with it, and find people who can help you to understand how do you deal with it, how do you put process in place to attack. And then on average, practices were at 56 days of revenue outstanding for their insurance and patient AR. And if you remember, the benchmark's 35 to 40. So, on average, the practices were at 56. So that means more than half of the practices out there are well above, and need to address one or the other. Because typically, in some cases, both sides are struggling, but typically there's one side or the other that drives that number up. And taking a look at the detail level, understanding where your particular issue is and what you need to do in order to fix it is key. And then lastly, 50% of the outstanding revenue was patient AR. Again, kind of goes back up to bullet number 2. It's an issue. It's an industry issue across the board. We're all dealing with it. It's something that that again, we need. Organizations have to be more diligent around it and put strategies in place to manage it, because it's worse today than it was 5 years ago, and it's going to be worse going forward also. So, Ellen, I caught it this time because I could see it, and we're off to that second poll.
So our second poll, thank you, Rich. Our second poll actually is going to be on the reaction to this particular slide, the statistics on this particular slide. We're asking you which of these 4 statistics is one that you actually are finding most surprising. As Rich mentioned, the payment model has changed significantly, and which of these percentages really do you find most surprising today? That 80% exceed the recommended accounts receivable benchmark of 12 to 14%? that 50% of patient accounts receivable is in 90-plus days, and we saw how much of it was actually going out to the 6-month mark. The average, 56 days of revenue outstanding for insurance and patient AR, and that 50% of outstanding revenue is patient AR. It's interesting to see which of these statistics our audience finds most surprising.
I know how I'd vote.
All right, well, you have to wait to share your vote till we get a little bit more of the audience in.
All right.
So we'll give it another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we're going to close the vote and share the results.
Oh, I was almost correct on my guess.
All right, go ahead. So 35% feel that 80% exceeding the recommended AR was the most surprising. The one that was most surprising second was the amount, that 50% being patient AR, and then the 56-day average of outstanding AR, and that the most people were not surprised to find that 50% of patient AR is in 90-plus days.
Yeah, and my guess would have been 4, but I certainly agree with number 1. As I said, I don't know if everybody out there has looked at the benchmarks that are published by MGMA. A lot of people, will look at that 12 to 14% and say, in today's world, that may not be as realistic as maybe it was 5 years ago. But it still needs to be the goal. It still needs to be, the goal for everybody to shoot for, because that's where the profitability of the business is, and getting that AR percentage down. And so, again, it's definitely key there. But, as I said, for me, the 50%, the fact that we've gotten to a point now where 50% of our outstanding AR is on the patient side, where I remember back in my old DME days, and for those of you familiar with DME businesses, they dealt with a lot of the more patient AR than physician offices did in a lot of cases, but we were never at 50% even way back then, not even close to 50%. So that was one that jumped out at me.
Okay.
All right, well, let's jump back into the next slide. So as we talk about it, we've looked at some examples. We did some polling and kind of give you guys an idea of that you're not alone. What are the key statistics? So what are the inhibitors? So we talked a little bit about each of these, but the first one there is a key one. It's resource challenge, and I mentioned it earlier. It's offices are dealing on limited staff. They're trying to do more with less because, again, all the pressures of reimbursements declining and just the cost of doing business continuing to go up for a practice. They have to crunch that staff number down, and it makes it very difficult to try to manage everything and to get everything done. And again, people have multiple hats on doing, and when I say 1.5 jobs, I'm not talking about that they're doing a half a job and another job. I'm talking about time-wise. They have a 1.5 times the time they're spending on different jobs because they're doing a piece of a couple of different things, and there's no easy way to fix this because it is, again, part of the reality that we're dealing with. The key thing here, I think, is again, using the statistics, going through and analyzing where your issue is, where's that stumbling block for the organization, and again, putting tools in there, and in this case, resources in there to assist, but not necessarily going out and saying, I'm going to hire another person, because that can be very expensive. Finding partners, finding vendors to work with that can help you offload pieces of what needs to be done, or in some cases, in the sense of the third bullet, which is no eligibility checking, finding tools that make it easier for you to do pieces of it so you can be more successful. And there's vendors out there, MDeverywhere is one of them, that that offers these type of solutions that can help manage some of these challenges. The second bullet is tied to the personnel, but it's lack of expertise. Again, as the pool of people out there and the world changes, especially say with ICD-10 coming down and the change with ICD-10 of having to look at brand new coding, the expertise pool is getting thinner. You don't have as many people who have that expertise to be able to do all the different types of jobs. And one of those areas is on that back end. The practices tend to be very good at the patient care side and understanding what they've done and get everything ready to go. But boy, no one likes to call the payers because they're very difficult to work with. So as on the back end, if you have folks who are doing that, especially if they're doing it part-time because they're already also involved on the front end, they just don't necessarily have that expertise of how to work with the payers and talk with the payers and get the payers to do what you need them to do, because inherently payers aren't out there saying, boy, tell me what to do and I'll pay you. That's not their mantra. So having that expertise in the back end, and per se even on the front end, if you have getting the right people on the front end can certainly help with the resource challenge issue. But it's key also going forward to make sure you have that expertise, or you get that expertise from a partner from the outside. The fourth bullet, elaborate patient collection process. We talked a lot about that, but it's just given that flexibility to the patients and giving your staff the flexibility and the knowledge on the front end to do collections. So I'll give you another example that I didn't mention earlier on the front end. Having a system that tells you when a patient comes in and checks in at the front window, what is the current balance that they owe, the net balance after everything's been adjudicated? What do they owe that your practice right then on the spot? And having it visible right on your screen there, so that way your front office person can say, boy, Bob, it looks so for your last appointment, everything's gone through, and you owe us $25. Can I go ahead and collect that today? Let me collect that right now. Since you're giving me your credit card for the copay, I'll go ahead and just charge that amount too. So again, having those type of tools that give your staff the ability to do the best they can on the front end to either collect in advance or collect past due payments on the front end, and then on the back end, obviously, help with the patient, getting the patients to make their payments more quickly. And the last performance inhibitor, and it's one of the pieces that makes up a significant chunk of the revenue that's being left on the table, is contract mitigation, or tracking your contracts with your payers. The MGMA said, the CMS says that 7 to 11% of all claims that are paid by payers are underpaid. And the problem is, we're not talking, a $100 underpayment from a payer. There's certainly those out there, but they're the outliers. What we're talking about is that $3, $5, $7, $10, $15 underpayments. That one, if you're not effectively tracking them, you miss. Number two, if you do effectively track them, you need to have the resources to be able to follow up on them and get them paid. And number three, you look at it and go, boy, is it worth spending all that time on hold to get hold of a payer to collect $5 extra? The problem is that $5 is probably one of 100 claims, so it's really $500, so big picture. But again, it's definitely something where you need to have a tool, some way to be able to track your underpayments effectively, and then again make sure you have the resources to either internally or externally to go out and follow up and get those paid for you, because there's a lot of money being left on the table by not following through on the contracts. So again, let's talk real quick and then we'll go to questions. 5 ways to keep your practice healthy. So the first one is eligibility checking. And we talk with a lot of practices. There's a significant amount, 25% of the denials are caused by a lack of eligibility, and in most of the cases, it's a lack of checking. The practice doesn't have an effective way to check the eligibility. A lot of times the eligibility is checked when the patient gets there, or it's checked after the patient leaves. And by that, now all of a sudden, when you find that the insurance is not valid, now you're in a patient pay mode potentially, where in general what tends to happen is you get less money. So now having an eligibility process on the front end that it works, it's real time, it's automated, it's done early in the process, done at the appointment setting time, not done it when the patient's standing there in front of your front desk, is key to the key process to do. The next one's patient responsibility, on the patient responsibility side, and what we find is 25% of the value of the total bill is now patient responsibility, which is a major shift, as everyone knows. So again, as we look at this, it's a reality. We just have to come up with ways to make sure that we can capture that, as much of that on the front end, and make it as easy as possible to get on the back end. Third area is code errors and omissions. AR will increase 20 to 40% with the transition to ICD-10. Let that sink in for a second, because that's scary. So again, I think the last bullet's the one we talk about a lot. That CMS is suggesting that practices have 6 months of collection set aside to offset any negative impact from ICD-10 when it occurs. But again, it's definitely key to be prepared and have that expertise, have that knowledge. I did a presentation a couple of months ago on ICD-10, and that I told people that were in that audience, I said, don't take this delay as, hey, I can wait a year to worry about it. They've given you a reprieve to continue the efforts or start your efforts now and be prepared when you get to it, because it's going to come hard and it's going to be very difficult when it does hit. The next one's denial management. 65% of denials are never appealed. Again, another startling number. That many denied claims are sitting out there. So again, goes back to the whole denial management process. You need to make sure that as you come across denials, that you have an effective follow-up process. But really, you got to do it on the front end. You have to go and you have to avoid those denials on the front end and have the tools, whether it's eligibility verification, whether it's a rules engine, whatever it is on the front end. Clean those things up before they go out the door. Do not let them go out the door and be denied, because, again, it makes it that much more difficult. And then the last one deals with underpayments. We talked about the contract management side of the house. Enforce your payer contracts. Get a database, get a knowledge base that helps you to track these and flags them. And then if you need it, go find someone who can help you on the back end to get the to follow up on these, so you can find that. Again, keep in mind 7 to 11% of claims are underpaid. And what we see, even if the folks we're talking about a 15% money left on the table, that can turn into 3 to 5% of additional revenue that's sitting out there that is money you've earned. It's not something that you have to go back and refile for. It's just you weren't paid correctly, and it's a easy call to get that paid. All right, Alan, back to you for last poll.
Last poll, and we're actually going to be asking folks, based on the content today that we've shared with you about the process assessment and understanding your own analysis. When we did our original poll, 36% of you had completed a practice assessment within the last 12 months. Of the rest of you, how many of you, given today's content, are likely to perform a practice assessment in the near future, so within the next, say, 6 months or so? Very likely, somewhat likely, really didn't impact you one way or the other, neutral, somewhat unlikely, or very unlikely.
Boy, I hope it's all in the top part of that list, Ellen.
You would think, well, I think that you'll be very pleased with the results so far. So people are actually pretty quick in responding to this one. So let's give it another 5 seconds for everyone to be heard. So press your button. Based on the content that you saw today, how likely are you to do your own practice assessment and really take your own pulse and dig out where you might be leaving revenue on the table? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's close the poll and share the results. And Rich, you're never going to believe
There we go. Good job.
52% will be considering an assessment within the near term.
Guess that means I've done my job, Ellen.
That's it. I mean, and it's really just so important for you to be able to run a successful business. You have to know where the block is. Where are you getting tied up? Where is the money getting stuck? And you can't do that without doing an assessment.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go to my last slide, which is really the conclusions and the key takeaways for everyone. So as we look at it, again, one key takeaway is 30% of potential revenue is left on the table every year. You want to harp on that. It's out there. Money's there. No practice is immune to money being left on the table. Everybody has money there, and the key thing is being able to go get it. I always feel like the H&R Block guy. Go get your money. It's out there. Dig deep and know your numbers. Do these assessments. Understand your metrics. Recognize your strengths and weaknesses. Track your trends. That's important because you want to not be surprised. You want to know that something's coming ahead of time so you can react to it. Don't be scared to change your processes. I know it's hard. I know we've done the same thing forever and ever and ever. Well, unfortunately, what's changed is the market we're living in. The world we're living in has changed significantly with healthcare reform and Obamacare and all the changes that have occurred, and in addition to ICD-10 and equal use and everything. A lot has changed, and we can't do things the way we used to do it because it's not going to be effective, and that's why many practices are struggling with being successful. And again, more and more, that change in process is getting assistance, finding someone to help, finding new technology, making that change. If you've been on your same practice management system for 10 years, you need to go out there and look, because even if you've upgraded, there's so many systems out there that have increased functionality that will help you. Consider an RCM partner, and this goes into getting that help. There's MDeverywhere and others who do this. This is what we do. We live in this world of helping practices to find more money. As you do your practice assessment, as you analyze it, you see some big bumps, especially on the back end of the process. If you're just really struggling on your insurance and patient AR, there's vendors out there that can help, that have great solutions and tools and people and experts to help with that. And then keep in mind, every dollar counts. Don't ignore those $5 and $7 and $10 underpayments. Those are there. That's money that's yours. You need to go get it. You need to get somebody to help you go get it. But you need to go get that money because that can add up. I mean, think about that for, say, a practice that's bringing in collections of $100,000 a month, which isn't a large practice. Bringing collections of $100,000 a month, there could be as high as $5,000 sitting out there just in underpayments. Every dollar counts. Don't find it and get it and plug those leaky revenue cycle or the leaks in your revenue cycle that are out there. Well, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Rich, terrific content, terrific assessment. So I want to thank you for all the detail on evaluating the practices and making sure that the folks on today's call know how to do an assessment and really understand their own practice's health. Run the reports, review the results in detail. Times are challenging in the healthcare industry today, and every dollar left uncollected could mean the difference between your practice's success or your failure to stay independent or keeping your office doors open. Before I do take a minute to talk about MDeverywhere, I just want to do a quick reminder that you still have a couple of minutes to key in any questions you have right into your chat window. We do have questions that are coming in. I'm not sure we're going to have time to get to all of them. Any that we don't get to live on the call, we will follow up with individually afterwards. But my favorite part of the presentation is I get to give you my 60-second overview of MDeverywhere. Again, it's finding the right revenue cycle management partner is critical. Our ICD-10 ready, purpose-built revenue cycle technology and our medical billing services, all that back-end medical claims processing work, are proven to improve processing, increase collections for clients 10 to 15%. 10 to 15% is a significant amount of revenue coming in the door, and it should get your attention. Add in a user-friendly 2014 Meaningful Use Certified EHR, and you have all of the technology needed for your front office and your providers to successfully manage and document patient encounters while getting paid quickly and correctly. And I mentioned earlier, our credentialing division is top-notch. We're also very proud that we've again been awarded our NCQA certification, so our CVO and credentialing division can handle all of your Medicare revalidation needs. All providers have to be revalidated. The deadline is in 2015, so if you haven't gotten your letter yet, you should be looking for it. If you have gotten your letter, those providers should be credentialed already. We provide service to approximately 7,000 physicians nationwide, 40 different specialties in hospital as well as private practice settings, and we pride ourselves on maximizing revenue for our clients while meeting their revenue cycle, electronic medical record, and credentialing needs. So anyone on this call who really is interested in digging down, trying to plug up some of those leaky revenue cycles and wants to talk with MDeverywhere about a revenue cycle partnership, if it would be beneficial to you, contact either myself or Rich after the webinar. We'll be happy to talk to you about our services and what we can do for you as what we've done for many of our other providers and practices. All right? So, Rich, we are going to flip to a couple of questions. All right? Let's start with one. With the rise in patient responsibility, how do you recommend we manage our patient collections better? And I know you kind of touched on this a couple of times in the presentation, but the question did come through. So how do we handle that patient responsibility collection?
Well, exactly. And as we talked about, this is a problem for practices today and one that's just continuing to grow, especially with the high deductible plans and more patients, more of the patient responsibility falling onto the patients. I think the key things, again, just to reiterate, eligibility verification, understanding the issue before it becomes an issue, knowing and going into the appointment with that patient where they are on their plan and being able to manage that front end of the process to minimize the back-end patient collection balance that's there. I think the other side, obviously, too, as we talked about, having the tools. I can't tell you what a benefit a payment class, automated payment plan option is. We had one at my DMEs, and even way back then when I was there. It's key to the process because you cannot have staff worrying about tracking and following up on that. You need to put it into a system and let it run, and watch the money come in, and only have to worry about it if a payment doesn't come through, and then you can follow up with that patient. It's definitely key, and having that automated process and giving the flexibility of both in the payment plans and on the portals, and having the portals there, that patients can make a payment on a credit card and a check. A lot of times organizations only offer the credit card functionality, not the check functionality, and patients can't do that on their credit card, or they don't have a credit card, so they can do it on their bank account. So give them that ability to do that, and just make it as easy as possible for them to go ahead and make a payment.
Thank you, Rich. We're going to squeeze one more in before we run out of our time. What do you recommend to assist in managing the denial appeal process?
Yeah, again, this is the elephant in the room for a lot of practices. This is a difficult, the difficult piece of the pie is denial appeal process, and managing that and building an effective process to be able to manage the denials. But I can't emphasize enough the key thing in effectively managing the denials is eliminating on the front end, and that's where it gets lost. A lot of people think I've just got to figure out a better way to do it on the back end. Well, if you can eliminate it on the front end, have the tools on the front end to help you cut down that denial rate by 90 to 95%. So instead of having 10 denials a month, you have one. That it eliminates the problem on the back end, because now it's a lot more effective, a lot more easier to manage. But if you do have issues on the back end and you need some help, again, find folks like MDeverywhere or others who can help you on the back end to do that. But again, I think the piece that always gets lost with folks is where's the problem coming from? It's not coming from the payers. It's coming from the front end. It's making sure we're doing all the right things on the front end. And a piece of that is, again, that denial engine, that robust upfront engine that's going to check claims for payer-specific denials. Don't think that your clearinghouse checkers are going to catch this, because they don't. I used to work at a clearinghouse. They are very basic things that they check. They don't check payer-specific stuff, and that's having that denial engine on the front end that you run the claims against before it goes out is going to eliminate a significant amount of the problems going forward, and will help you on the back end issues of having to manage those appeals. And I did see one quick question that just so everybody knows, to reiterate, all that benchmark data, it all came from either CMS or it came from MGMAs. These are all industry standard numbers out there that we work with, that we're showing you guys, not numbers that that are coming from us. The metrics are from us, as far as the different practices, but those benchmarks are numbers that come from industry organizations.
Thank you, Rich. And any other questions that were presented, we will follow up with them individually. All right. Again, contact MDeverywhere if you would like more information on how to improve your workflow, increase your collections, no strings attached. I do want to invite you to mark your calendars for our July webinar, July 16th, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Okay, 1 o'clock Central, work it backwards. All right, July 16th, 2 o'clock Eastern, understanding the impact the healthcare exchange is having on your clients, your patients. Your patients are doing more research when shopping for a provider, evaluating the value of different health plans given the out-of-pocket cost that has shifted to them. So we're going to cover how you can continue to meet the needs of your clients and continue to grow your practice in today's challenging environment. Register via the link located on the bottom of the MDeverywhere homepage, www.mdeverywhere.com. Down at the bottom footer, we have upcoming events, and you'll see that July 16th event there. Thank you again, Rich, for the information and the expertise on the practice assessment and explaining the value and understanding the practice's performance metrics. And thank you again to all of our audience members for taking an hour out of your day and spending it with MDeverywhere. We know your time is valuable, and we hope that you found this information valuable to yourself. We will share the recorded webinar and the presentation with all in the next day or so, and this will end the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.